magic, yeah. And it's the way.
Good morning, good people. Good afternoon, rather. I had one more deep concept I wanted to share about listening to that voice. Every time I think about it, man, it's just kind of amazing. Years ago, right, I was uh, I was in a place, right? I was in this. We all kind of know the place I was in. Wasn't always the upstanding gentleman that I am today. Kind of in the between the rock and the hard spot, you know. And I was in a place that I didn't want to be that young. I got in trouble when I was real young, man. When I was like 16 years old, and 16 had sentenced me to quite a number of years. And while I was doing that time, man, several instances I was questioning, like, dang, Father, because I know I did something wrong anyway. I accepted that part, but I was like, dang, Father, why? Why you have to put me here, man? You know what I mean? Why come I couldn't have got a slap on the wrist? And I learned my lesson that way. But it wasn't to be. The father had better understand, had a different plan for me, right? But I grew up. It was in my household. It was me and my brother Ronald, and but I with my father, I had like three, four other brothers, and one of them, his name was Jock, right? I never knew his whole name. Never knew his whole name. Only knew his nickname, childhood name. It was Jock. So my father said I had met him years ago. You know what I mean? When I was probably like a baby, probably 5, 6 years old. He said I seen him. I never recalled it. Uh, and I never met, at that time, I had not met any of my other brothers at all. They were much younger than me anyway. I hadn't met them yet. So, but this particular brother, his name was Jock, and I used to always, when I was kids, I hear other kids' names and their nickname was Jock. And a lot of times when I would hear that name, I usually approach them and be like, "Hey, hey, hey, your name Jock?" And they be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I ask, "What's your father's name?" And of course, I was always kind of trying to find a match, like see if one of these dudes would actually be my brother one day. Never turned out to be. So um, fast forward, I end up in the place I didn't want to be. So that was in one camp. And usually when you're in the state prison, and if you get transferred for disciplinary reasons to a higher level institution, they don't usually send you back to a lower level, the same institution, same lower level institution you got rolled from. They don't usually send you back to that same institution on the same sentence, on the same bit. So, um, needs to say, it ended up happening to me. Some years ago, I was at one camp, and they said that the prisons was overcrowded. So the solution to that was to send a bunch of Missouri inmates to Texas, where I'm at now. Funny. But yeah, to send a bunch of guys from Missouri State Prison, they were sending them to private institutions in Texas. Found out that all that was illegal. We was involved in a big class action lawsuit where we got some money. But make a long story short, they end up sending again. When I end up at that institution, I was thinking to myself, like, dang, dang, God, why would you send me way out here, man? I had no family in Texas. As a matter of fact, it was funny how that ended up happening too. The guy came in. We knew that they was making these Texas runs, taking a lot of Missouri inmates to Texas. And one day they came to the camp I was at, took them out, started taking inmates out, and they came in my dorm. Ended up taking a bunch of inmates, and they walked out, left. They told everybody to pack their stuff. They'd be back to get them and everything. They did that early in the morning to where you couldn't even go to your work detail. And when they did that, it was one of the guys I was real cool with, man. We should call him Youngster, and he was one of the guys that was supposed to go. So of course, when somebody leaving, you try to they couldn't take anything with them, by the way. So everything that they had for us, like food, um, certain cosmetics. They couldn't take anything on this trip to Texas with them. And so, of course, I went to my buddy. I'm like, hey, man, since you got to go, man, let me get that mattress. You got his was more comfortable than mine. Let me get that mattress. I tried to get the TV because I didn't have a TV at the time. He was like, "Nah, I'm gonna put this in." I guess they was gonna store their stuff. So I was like, "Well, let me get the camera." So actually, I was trying to get whatever he wanted to give. And he was giving me a few items. He gave me the mattress. Then he was giving me a few other items that he couldn't take with him, food items, cosmetic items. And they end up coming back up and say, "Hey, we forgot one guy." And so everybody looking around like, "Who could that be?" Needless to say, it was me. So here we are, getting shipped to Texas to some private institutions. Another funny thing about it, they sent us there on the Missouri Tiger coach buses. So we was riding state through these states, all back roads on the Missouri Tiger coach buses. So a lot of times they would stop and get us food, McDonald's, things like that. People was running up to the bus thinking that this was actually the Missouri Tiger football team or whatever sports team it might have been for the Missouri Tigers, but it was a bunch of inmates on that daggone bus. So being trailed by a bunch of men, armed guards. Right? So we get to Texas, and here I am again, complaining like, dang, Father, why, why would you put me in a situation like this, man? Uh, and I had never experienced this heat that they have in Texas. It was brutal to say the least. And so I went through some things here, you know what I mean? I get into the story about what happened one day, how we end up coming back. It was all over. Part of it was all over the news. Some guys had got bit up by a bunch of dogs. The inmates sick dogs on the Missouri inmates, and they got bit and all kind of stuff, man. One guy that actually, I believe he got his name from me. You know what I mean? Be honest. He was one of the guys that got bit by the dogs, man. So it was a thing to get the Missouri inmates back because somebody leaked the footage. Somebody in the Texas prison leaked the footage out, and so it was a push to get us back to Missouri. Actually, those people in that particular campus was in like 5 different places in Texas. Those who was in that particular camp got sent back to Missouri. Myself, I was in a whole nother camp that didn't get sent back to Missouri. So some crazy things happened. Some Hawaiian inmates took over the whole prison. One of these days I'll tell that story because that was a deep one right there, man. I never experienced a prison takeover, man, and it happened again. I'm saying, Father, why me? Why me, man? At the time I was young, man. I went in at 16 years old, came home. I was 24 years old. Then in my mind, I'm like, why me? So they take over the prison. That's a short story. I'll give you the long version another day. But they take over the prison. Uh, kicked the guards off the prison, so there wasn't no keys. We had to get locked in our dormitories by chains and stuff like that. So of course it wasn't secure enough to keep us in there, and they had burnt down, key parts to the place. So it wasn't habitable no more. They had to get rid of us. They had to send us back to Missouri. So upon when they sent us back, they actually sent me to an institution, that the same institution I got rolled from on this same bit, for disciplinary reasons. I called it an assault, cite, and riot or something like that. And they sent us back. And when they sent me back to this camp, I hated it because back then, if you're from Missouri, this place called Boonville. It's called it the Thunderdome. So only thing happened in Boonville was a bunch of gang banging fights all the time. So I had got rolled in early in my bid. Like I wasn't even probably incarcerated in 7 months. I ended up catching an assault and citing a riot and got rolled to a higher level institution. And then I did majority of my time in one of them in a higher level institution. So I wasn't supposed to go back to the Kitty Dome, the Thunderdome. They sent me back to the Thunderdome, of course. Again, I'm questioning, like, why, Father, why? All right, the time I was there, I was kind of affiliated back then, so I used to hold these meetings with the younger guys, and they used to always want to hear a little wisdom about something that they was involved in. And one little guy I would see all the time, you know. He had just got jumped on, man. They had jumped him in the workhouse, man, and, you know, caught him while he was asleep. You know how that go. They catch you in your sleep, hold you down, and they do the lock in the sock or the soap in the sock or the canned good in the sock on you, you know what I'm saying? And they end up jumping him real bad, kind of messed up his teeth a little bit in the battle. So he had a few enemies. Of course, he had some enemies. And so I got, but like I say, I didn't know who he was at the moment. But I was seeing this guy every time he came to a meeting. I was in O&O. That's like when you first come to a camp, you end up in O&O till they find out what dormitory they or housing unit they're gonna put you in. And I was looking at this guy every time he came to the meeting. I said, "Dang, it was something in my spirit that kept talking to me like, like, dang, you know him somehow. You know this guy. You know him." And you know, he would come, but I never would speak to him. As the creator would have it, he ended up putting me in the same housing unit with this guy. And I was about 2 days in. This guy came down from the top dorm to the top. Uh, there was 2 stories to this dormitory, to this housing unit. Came down to the first floor. He walked past the door, and my cell. I seen him, and I said, "Damn!" Actually, when I seen him, I saw my father. I didn't even see him no more. I saw my father. He was on his way to the shower, so I didn't want to interrupt the shower. You know, so I waited till he actually came out the shower, got himself together, came into the day room. And so I go out, and something just kept telling me, ask this man who his father was. And again, I followed the voice, and I asked him. I said, "Excuse me, young brother, you know, if you don't mind me asking, man, I know this kind of personal, but what's your father's name, if I may ask?" Exact words he said to me. They say the nigga name is John Connors. I said, wow, because that would happen to be my father's name. My name is John. And I said, dang, brother, you sure? He said, yeah. And so I told him, I said, if that's true, if John Connors is your father, then I'd be your big brother. Another funny, ironic thing was he was just in a place called Fulton. If you know, you know. Another diagnostic with my father. And my father heard his name. This is what he said. They say the nigga name is John Connors. But he still didn't believe it. He tell me a story about running into my father in prison in the diagnostic. And he said, mail call was called. He said some strange nigga walked up to me and said, "Dang," he heard my name and said, "Is your mother name Denise?" And he was like, "Why? Who wants to know?" He said, "Man, if that's your mother," the same thing I told him. Like, if that's your father, I'd be your brother, your big brother. My dad told him, if that's your mother, I'd be your dad. And he looking like, well, nigga, I don't know nothing about that. He was so far fetched to him, he never dealt with the guy. So when I met him, now, at the time, like I say, I didn't know him. He probably didn't even know of me. But I think my father had told him, "Yeah, you got a brother somewhere in this system too." You know, he ended up calling his aunties, and actually asking his auntie because he was raised by his stepfather, who they never told him that it wasn't his real father. His auntie actually told him, like, "Hey, your real father name is John Connors." While he was on the phone, while I was in the day room, he called while we was there. And he came back to me. He said, "Man, I just got off the phone with my auntie, and she confirmed that the guy that I met in Fulton is actually my father." And he said, "So you were, I guess you my brother." And the funny thing about it is, when I came into his life, he actually needed me. He actually needed me, and that helped. Dang, how ironic. But, then there again is when I say, sometimes that little voice in you be talking. Your creator. It's something I had always asked for, to know my brothers, you know what I'm saying? Because my father, you know, he was an old playboy, you know what I mean? He was a Rolling Stone. And to pick him out of all the people in the world. And his name is not Jock. His actual name is Jaquez. You know, so he didn't go by that at all. In there, he went by a street name. So there was no way I could put two and two together. But that little voice that was right in here and in her spoke, and it spoke loud enough for me to listen. After that, I tell you, that was the beginning when I began to learn. No matter where the Creator puts you, no matter what the circumstance is, you're there for a reason. You're there for a reason. And if you're a child of God, you're protected. Because I was always protected. And everywhere I went in life that I used to question, I stopped. I know now everything, every situation is divinely inspired. I was meant to be wherever I am. Where I am now, I was meant to be. So I stopped looking at things as punishments and start looking at life, these as life lessons. Stop looking at hard times as hard times, but as time to slow down and reflect, because there's a message in it somewhere. There's something I'm supposed to learn. There's someone I'm supposed to meet. There's someone that's supposed to meet me. Creator is the best of planners. So again, that little voice in you, practice homing in and hearing it. It is your greater self, your higher self. It's the God in you. Again, I'm John, Clarity Closer. And I usually only speak to good people. Good people. This message is for good people. Remember, God is good. Oh, and by the way, this is a nice ass vehicle.